What's up, legends? Welcome back to another Unmatched video. I wouldn't necessarily call this a strategy guide. I think strategy is taking the day off today, but I thought that this day in particular, out of all the days of the year, specifically today, would be the perfect time to make an unmatched character tier list, as a few of you have requested in my comments. So here it is. Remember, these rankings are entirely subjective and are just my opinion, and it's okay to disagree with me. It just means you're wrong. So let's get started here. There's really no general structure I have for ranking these characters. I just have a bunch of very specific reasons based on who they are, and there's really no rhyme or reason to the overarching rankings in total. So let's just jump into it and see what happens. Let's make some magic together. All right, so we'll start from the bottom and go to the top, F being the worst, S tier being the best. And I think the worst character in the game is Spike. His shadow tokens are just kind of hard to use and set up with his cards. Seek the Shadows in particular would be a lot stronger if instead of drawing you cards, you moved or it gave you an action, because it's really only useful if it's the first action on your turn and your opponent is right next to you. Otherwise, it just doesn't really do anything. And some of your cards are a little inconsistent, whether they require you to be on a fog token or your opponent to be on a fog token, or a fog token to not fog shadow token. Sorry, I just did the Invisible Man guide and that's still in my mind apparently. But your shadow tokens, sometimes they have to be on you, sometimes they have to be under your opponent, and sometimes they have to be adjacent to your opponent. It's too much to work with. Your cards really aren't that consistent. Drusilla is a pretty good sidekick, but I think Spike is generally the weakest character in the entire game. The next character in F tier is Angel. His ability says after Angel or Faith, his sidekick attacks, if you lose the combat, you get to draw a card. This is all well and good, but a side effect from you losing the combat, in addition to you drawing the card, is that your opponent will laugh at you. And during the course of the game, you're probably going to lose a bunch of combats, and your opponent's just going to keep laughing at you at your constant failure, and it won't feel very good. You'll take a huge self-esteem hit after you play Angel, and just your opponent mocking you at every turn. It doesn't really feel that fun to play. So Angel is the second worst character in the game. Joining them in F tier, we have Bigfoot. So Bigfoot has a bunch of 6-value attacks, but he doesn't have a Lady of the Lake type card to retrieve them from his deck or discard pile to let him play them again. So he's just not very good in that sense, because you can't replay your 6-value attacks. It's just not very fun to play as him, because you only get 3. That's not enough. That's not enough to kill your opponent. He really needs more help in his deck in order to actually be strong and be one of the best characters in the game, maybe even top 3. Like, he would be top 3 if he just could play more 6-value attacks. And the last character in F tier is Arthur. I don't really have to explain this one. King Arthur's kind of bad. The first character in D tier, we have Sinbad. He has a move value of 2, which is very slow, and he actually has like 7 2-value attacks in his deck. How are you supposed to deal damage with a 2-value attack? It doesn't make any sense. He's stronger than all the characters in F tier, but just his cards and his move value just aren't good enough. Like, I really don't know what they were thinking. He's just too weak. The next character in D tier is Robert Muldoon, or InGen. So in the Jurassic Park movies, the character Muldoon has a hat. The mini for Muldoon in Unmatched does not. This was a critical oversight on the part of Restoration Games, or whoever designs the minis, and it's frankly unacceptable. So thusly, Muldoon and all of his workers are D tier. And the last character in D tier is Medusa. She makes uncomfortably long eye contact, and that's just not something I can really deal with when I'm playing. So I need a character that will just look away. I don't need my cards staring at me the whole game. It's just kind of creepy. The first character in C tier is Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock would be a lot higher if the designers based his character on the Robert Downey Jr. version of Sherlock instead of the Benedict Cumberbatch. You can clearly tell the art was inspired by Benedict Cumberbatch and not RDJ, who is the vastly superior Sherlock, in my opinion. And therefore, it just keeps him to the C tier for Cumberbatch. And the other character in C tier is Robin Hood. This is because he is a human and not a fox. If they splurged for the Disney IP and made him a fox, he'd be a lot higher. But he's just a man, and as such, he's in C tier. In B tier, we have all the characters that I was too lazy to write jokes about. And in A tier, we have Little Red Riding Hood. So, fun fact about her character, she has symbols on all of her cards that if they're the top card of your discard pile and the symbol matches the card you're playing, you get a nice bonus effect. What they don't tell you is that if you actually match 3 symbols in a row, you get a Candy Crush like effect and you deal 10 damage to your opponent, which is just insane. It's the hidden Little Red mode, the match 3 mobile game, or Candy Crush mod as I like to call it, and it's just a super powerful ability. Very cool, very unique, very special. The next character in A tier is actually Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So he has a card called Pure Evil in his deck, and I think this is very cool. This is Restoration Games officially staking their claim into the moral discussion of, does good and evil exist? Is it black and white? Or is everyone just a little bit of both? They are saying evil does exist and it's in this character. And I just think that's really cool. We don't really get into philosophical debates that often when we're playing this game. But when I play as Jekyll and Hyde, I feel like I'm really opening my third eye to the world and understanding things that I never could otherwise. And the other character in A tier is the Raptors from Jurassic Park. So unlike Muldoon, their set counterpart, they actually have something from the movie that directly ties into their character. There is a map called Hero Rot, and it has a special little feature on it. It has 3 doors. The Raptors can open these doors. They are the only character in the game that can actually open these doors because in the Jurassic Park movie, the Raptors are seen being able to open doors. And that's just really cool. You can play on Hero Rot and just wipe your opponent off the map because you can open and close doors, and the Raptors are the only heroes that can do that. You can actually open all 3 and close all 3 on the same turn with all your Raptors simultaneously. And that's just a nice little cool combo wombo you can do. And now we're in S tier. We only have 3 characters left. So these are what are known as the big 3, the best 3 characters in all of the game. Number 3 is Buffy. You have 2 sidekicks, which is just awesome. You can flip back and forth between them by flipping over your token and health dial to the corresponding character. And you have 35 cards in your deck. This gives you a huge boost for playing the exhaustion game because you can maneuver 5 more times than any other character can and not exhaust your deck and take extra damage. So she's just super useful in the long game and is thus part of the big 3. The second best character in the game is Beowulf because thighs. And the best character in the game is Willow. You have a card called Resurrect, which can bring back your sidekick. And you also have a card that lets you bring a card from your discard pile back into your hand. So with this combo, you can resurrect your sidekick and then get the Resurrect card back and resurrect them again and just infinitely loop this combo. And you just have an infinite amount of health that your opponent has to chew through. They just can't kill you. You'll just block them with your sidekick. They'll have to chew through her health. And when she's defeated, you just bring her right back. Your health dial literally has an infinity symbol on it because you just can't be killed. It's too much health for your opponent to deal with. I truly believe that Willow is the strongest character in all of Unmatched. So that's it for my first tier list. I'd love some feedback on how I did in the comment section down below. And if you haven't figured it out by now, this was an April Fool's Day joke. Happy April Fool's Day or whatever. You should not take this list seriously at all. You should not take anything I said seriously at all. Some of it was just plain wrong. That's not how Buffy works at all. And yeah, but I'm sure most of you probably picked up on that very quickly. So thank you for sitting all the way through this silliness with me. Shout out to the people that watched the first 2 minutes and then clicked away because they thought I was an idiot. This list is truly something else. So thank you so much for watching. That's it for this video. If you haven't heard by now, Mondo just announced the Deadpool solo pack, which is hopefully 100% not a prank. And maybe I'll do a quick little video on that later today based on the tiny amount of information they have released. But if not, I'll see you very soon in my next strategy guide video. As always, like, subscribe, and yay!